You ready?
Yes. I got a little dizzy from doing this so much at the beginning. I'm fine now. So we just absolutely housed our breakfast.
We did. Yeah, we've been doing this. This is our 31st episode, and we still end up eating 10 minutes before we do it most days.
Yeah, it's true.
Breakfast is the most important day of the week. And I stand by that statement.
Yeah.
How's everyone doing?
It's Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
We took some time on Monday to talk about the protests and to talk about our feelings about Trump and racism and police brutality. Those conversations are still happening, and they should be, because it's important to talk about it, and it's important to do something about it where you can. Yesterday we both spent a lot of time figuring out what that was and what that looked like. Whether it's donating money, sharing resources, educating yourself. I know that's what I spent a lot of time yesterday doing. Was really thinking about what I do know and what I don't know and where I can be better. A lot of people know I work in photography, and I felt like it was really important for me to re-educate myself and remind myself about the power of photography and its role and its place and its function in this time, and also its history as a tool of colonialism. I read a really, really interesting and really articulate article by Teju Cole that was from about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, that these are things that I knew when I understood on a surface level, but it was really helpful for me to spend that time yesterday kind of reflecting on that and go back into my work with that perspective, thinking about how the photography world can be more inclusive and how we can, make sure we are prioritizing stories about communities of color, taken by communities of color, and how Black photographers and Black photo editors need to be a part of the conversation. We can't just be sending photographers blindly out into the world to, explain and show and bear witness to this moment. It's a big effort, but it really, once I kind of locked into that, like, this is what I can be doing and this is how I can be contributing. I did feel like it was productive. Change doesn't happen overnight, but reminding myself of where I stand and what I can do and how I can be listening and, be more receptive and open to those conversations and to those ideas and to be pushing that forward was, it felt good. So that's my rambling. I'm not trying to soapbox or anything, but.
Yeah. I had a similar day yesterday. I mean, I mentioned it before that I work excuse me, in the music industry. So I kind of find myself in two different stratospheres of the music industry. There's obviously like the DIY punk world that Basic Bitches inhabits, and then and I work for it's an indie group of labels, but it's one of the bigger indie groups of labels. And obviously the music industry sort of pushed through this blackout. Well, what became known as Blackout Tuesday,
right,
which was a spectacular own goal, I think, for a lot of people. The trouble with social media is that people will just jump on things. Yeah. So the intention originally, the Blackout Tuesday hashtag, I don't know where that came from. The hashtag was supposed to be "This show must be paused," and it was an initiative by two Black women who work in the music industry. And the idea was not to black out social media, which is what has unfortunately happened for a little while. The idea was for the music industry specifically to take a day, stop posting new releases, stop advertising, stop everything, and just look in on itself about how it can be better, which it absolutely can. My God, it can be better. And my company had an all hands Zoom meeting to discuss that, which I'm not going to pretend all of it was productive. I don't think a Zoom call with more than 5 people on is ever particularly productive, but I think it was valuable that the conversation was being had, and I hope it goes on. I'm in a weird spot in the music industry. I never had any aspirations to work in the music industry. To be honest, like a lot of people like that's what they want to do. A lot of people that I work with, that was always their goal. They promoted shows as a student, or they were involved in their college radio station or whatever. Like they were always trying to push through to ultimately being in the music industry. That was not my move at all. I make websites, and at some point I started making websites for a record label, and I think that puts me in a slightly not standoffish, but a sidestep from some of the culture of being in that world. And I don't know if I had wanted to work in a record label, I don't know how I would have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I tried to make that point yesterday, that there's a real problem with access to the industry. And it ends up like historically, there's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of, not so much in my company, although I've seen it, but especially at the majors, like getting an internship because your daddy works at the label or whatever. It perpetuates the same very small world of people being part of who decides what music gets money behind it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true for so many industries too. I mean, it's true in the photo world. You know somebody, and or you have the money to get equipment, and so you can go out and shoot and build a portfolio and go to reviews and meet people. Like that first avenue of entry, that there is a real accessibility problem where it's, a lot of industries aren't as open from that first level as they should be, which really prevents too many people from.
Like the other thing, which my company stopped doing, I don't know I don't know how prevalent it still is, and I think that was at least in part to do with New York State legislation. So this might still be the case in other states, but they stopped having interns. When I first came over, there was a bunch of interns all the time who always looked really bored. Stuffing envelopes for the radio department or taking stuff to the post office or whatever it was. And that's a very American tradition in an internship. And I found it disgusting. Like, if you're going to use people's labor, pay them. They're not getting anything out of this by and large. I mean, some interns did. Some interns went on to get jobs in the company. But most of them didn't, because of the numbers of interns versus the number of jobs that ever come up at a lower level of the company. Like, it just wasn't ever going to. That's not a pipeline.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's easy for people to tell themselves that, well, if you're tenacious, you can make it work. But it is as much to do with timing as anything, whether it was helpful, and it's set up, the internships as a concept is set up so that only kids who have parents who can support them can afford to do that.
Yeah.
And if not, then they have to work all night at a bar to be able to actually pay their rent, so they can come in and stuff envelopes for 8 hours the next day for $10.
Yeah.
Like, it really upset me when I came over and saw it. And like I said, my company doesn't do it anymore. But like people considered internships being like a way to get into the industry, and it was purely exploitative. And
Yeah.
I feel like it still goes on. So we did a lot of reflection yesterday, and I did quite a lot of finding out about smaller organizations in New York that work at the intersection of Black people and LGBTQ communities. And we posted a few of them to our Instagram stories, and we'll continue to do that. There was one that I really liked the ethos of, called the Okra Project, which tried to get over the fact that okra is involved.
That's okay, I
Crystal
understand.
doesn't like okra.
It's,
And
I assume it's an acronym.
no, it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
Right.
It's talking about the history of okra as a vegetable that, which I didn't know. Apparently, the reason I don't know if it was in America before, but the reason that okra is quite popular within the Black community, because previous to living in America, I had only encountered it with Indian food. Is that some slaves smuggled it over, so that they would have some nutrients on the boat, and obviously brought it with them and were able to cultivate it. Well, certainly that's some of why it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's more behind that story, but so the Okra Project work to help with food scarcity in the Black trans community, and they also run cooking lessons. So it's to do with getting food to people, and they will cook for people as well. It's not just a groceries project, but they also will teach people how to cook, which I just think is great.
Yeah.
So Black trans chefs teaching Black trans people how to cook, which I thought was really wonderful. But yeah, there were quite a few others, and we're going to keep posting these to our Instagram stories. And we also went to a local protest last night. So we are upstate, and they said they think they had 160 people there.
Yeah, which is a pretty good showing.
Maybe the entire population of the town. To be honest.
But yeah, I mean, it was nice. We were like right on one of the bridges over the river between New York and Pennsylvania. But you know, it was really nice. I think it was the first time we've been in like a group of people and seen people that we know in ages.
I got really emotional just seeing that many human beings in real life.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were able to socially distance style hang out with our friends Mike and Erica, who live over there, who we haven't seen. I share a cubicle with Mike at work. I spend every day with that dude, and I haven't seen him for like 3 months.
Yeah, and you know, we were there when we were talking on Monday. I was sort of talking about how I worry about protests in the face of the pandemic, and you know, I thought a lot about that yesterday and on Monday too. And I know that the pandemic is a threat, but it's a different kind of threat. And the Black community has been dealing with the threat of police brutality for longer than we've been dealing with the threat of the coronavirus. And you know, it's still worth it to get out there if you're smart and if you're safe about it. It's still worth it to get out there and to show solidarity and to show up. It's still worth it to show up. And I'm glad that we went yesterday. You know, it certainly was not at the level of what protests have looked like everywhere else in the country, but you know,
it was good to see as well. I mean, we are relatively close to like where Woodstock happened. Not the town Woodstock, where the actual festival Woodstock happened. And there's a degree of right on older
Yeah,
hippies
there
out
is a
here.
large
But there's
contingent,
also,
yeah.
like we spoke about on Monday, a large Trump contingent.
Yes.
And it was, whilst it didn't have the tension that a protest in New York would have, there were people who drove past with trucks blazoned with Trump stickers. And they didn't do anything. They went on their way.
Yeah.
But it was still a very visceral way of feeling the tension up here as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad we went.
Yeah. So, we were thinking a lot about what we can still do and how we can still kind of contribute. Should we make our announcement? And we had, Monday we said we had a bunch of announcements we were going to make, and we decided to hold off on them. But, we were thinking of what we can still do. And, a lot of you all know that we had a tour booked that was supposed to be starting this Friday. We canceled it because, well, for obvious reasons, but what we have decided to do is to forge ahead with a virtual tour.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that starting on Sunday, we are going to be doing a series of shows from our house. We're going to do some live stream concerts on the dates when we would have had shows booked in other cities.
Yeah, we didn't have the tour 100% booked up, so we're just going to work with the dates where we did have things. So there are some gaps.
There will be
it's
some
not
gaps.
a solid 2 weeks of shows.
Yeah.
And this is something that we had already decided to do, but we've augmented it a little bit to reflect the times that we're in. So what we are doing personally is we are dipping into the band fund and donating to, where possible, the venue that we would have been playing if they have either a venue fundraiser or a staff fundraiser.
Yeah.
There's a few venues that we were going to be playing that aren't doing that. And in those cities, we have spoken to local musicians and found various musician or more general artist relief funds, and we will be donating there instead. And in addition, we have also decided that we will be donating to a community bail fund in each of those cities as well.
Yeah.
So we have sourced a list of those. We put up a Facebook event page, and I know Facebook continues to be problematic, but unfortunately it is the most useful tool
Right.
for what we're trying to do here at the moment.
Yeah.
So before each show, we will be donating to those organizations, and we will be continually sharing the link, asking anybody that watches the shows to also donate.
Yeah, and we just felt like it was a way that we could continue to stay connected with some of the other bands and some of the other cities and the venues where we would have played, where we could do what we can from where we are to help the local scene, and to stay engaged. And being performers, we miss playing shows, we miss playing to an audience. And we did the live stream show for Hell Have No Fury, and we both really liked it and enjoyed it, and it felt really cool to kind of be able to broadcast to people. We wanted to have a piece of that for this tour, but at the same time feel like we were still able to make connections and make contributions in whatever way that we can.
It was also just very important to us to try and help the venues that we would have been playing.
Yeah,
because,
definitely.
Venues, independently owned venues, all venues, but particularly independently owned venues are really hurting now. We're 3 months in. They were really hurting 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
A lot of those places, they don't have a lot of money in reserves, and most of them don't own their buildings. So there's rent to pay, there's no income coming in. And I know that a lot of places are able to do takeout drinks now, but that's not going to cover the level of income that they had become accustomed to having access to.
Right.
So yeah,
So we wanted to be able to contribute there, but also, you know, now people who weren't even in those cities and towns are maybe going to watch the live stream and can contribute to those venues as well, and you know that they're out there and know that they're struggling, but they also have done so much to contribute to the local music communities in their cities and in their towns and in their scenes. We have some of the other bands that we would have played with are also on board and are going to be joining us on the gig nights with either their own live stream sets or pre-recorded videos, or which I'm really excited about. A lot of these bands that we were going to play with, I was very super psyched about playing with. Some of the bands we'd played with before, Swither in Pittsburgh is on board, and they're great. Calix, also in Pittsburgh, the lead singer Caitlin is going to be doing a live set for us. Two bands in Atlanta, Fun Isn't Fair and Post Hunk, are going to be joining us for those shows. So you know we're still trying to reach out and contribute and give back where we can, help the venues to contribute to bail bond funds, and to also give other musicians that we would have played with, you know, like not give them the platform. They have their own stuff going on, I'm sure, but like just
well, yeah, part of touring is, you know, making those connections.
Right.
So like continuing that tradition in the best way that we can. And in terms of the bail funds, you know, some bail funds have been getting a lot of attention, rightly so. The Brooklyn Bail Fund, whose work I've been following for a while, but we will be contributing to them for what would have been the Brooklyn night. But smaller community bail funds in these other cities are always also really important, and not just for protesters as an ongoing concern. The bail situation in this country is medieval. The idea that a poor person and a rich person could be arrested for the same crime, potentially not have done it anyway, and one of those can just throw some money and get out of jail immediately, and the other person would have to sit in jail for X number of days, even if they hadn't done the crime, without being convicted of anything because they didn't have the money for bail bond, is insane.
Yeah.
Anybody that thinks that is an okay system is straight out of the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
It's feudal.
It's just like it's such an accepted and prevalent system here, which is also bullshit. Like it's worth it to question that. If you've never questioned what the bail system is and how and why it functions the way that it does, like do some research, look into it, because it's
not right.
No.
And some of the smaller cities, the bail funds are faith-based, which would not be my preference. Just because I feel like when things are tied to one specific faith, it can make other people feel excluded. And, you know, it's not necessarily to do with my own lack of faith, but I think that can be an issue. But we have made sure that the couple of faith-based ones that we are contributing to are diligently serving the entire community.
Yeah.
They just happen to be tied to a faith organization
and
at that foundation.
Yeah, have also been vetted for the most part by people that we know in those cities who have also said, like, this is the place. Like, they're doing the work and they're getting people out. Like, so, you know, we're doing our best. We know it can never truly be enough, but you know, this is what we can do.
Yeah, we better play a song.
We should play the song. So this is a newer song.
Yeah, we wrote this during the lockdown, and we played it on. I think we played it on the Hell Hath Fury stream. We definitely played it on our Wicked Lady Save Our Wicked Lady session. It's called Start the World. I do want to point out that it's not some kind of premature reopening anthem.
Yes.
It's just talking about the frustrations of the situation. We don't want the lockdown to end until it's the right time for the lockdown to
Yes,
end.
well said.
To be clear. We'll be back on Friday, and Friday will be our last Good Morning Bitches for 2 weeks while we're doing the tour.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to inundate you with too many live moments.
Also, we're running out of songs to play.
Also, we're running out of songs to play. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Stop the world, I wanna get on. I wanna talk face to face. I want a sandwich from that corner store. I wanna walk to your place. I wanna feel the sun on my skin. I'm ready to feel happy again. We'll throw a party on your rooftop and we'll dance until the sun comes up and start all over again. Shoot, my friend. Start the world, I wanna get on. I wanna see something new. I wanna wake up somewhere I've never been and be embraced by the view. I wanna feel the sun on my skin. I'm ready to feel happy again. We'll throw a party on your rooftop and we'll dance until the sun comes up and start all over again. Soon, my friend. Soon, my friend. All right. Stay safe out there, everyone. We'll see you Friday.